This is Vibe Science, a top 100 wellness podcast presented by the Radcast Network, breaking wellness barriers and making health truly personal. Here are your hosts, Ryan Alford and Chris Hansen.
Hello, and welcome to Vibe Science. We're always taking you to your highest vibe. It's about mind, body, energy. Look, we need the best of modern medicine, but we also need to recognize the power and strength of alternative sources of healing, health, nutrition, all of those things. That's why we do this show. That's why I'm always excited when we have guests that have that alignment. And it ultimately starts with me, your host, Ryan Alford, and Chris Hansen. What's up, Chris?
What's up, brother? How are you today?
I'm great, man, because look, we've got an acclaimed author. And we've got someone that's right in the same line of how we think and can tell some amazing stories. We've got Phillipa Leseberg. Hey, Phillipa.
Hi. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah. Excited to have you. Excited to talk about your story. While it is a bit of a tearjerker at times, it needs to be told, and really appreciate what you've done. She's the author of His Name is Eric, which is available on Amazon, and her website will have access to those links on all of our show notes. But Phillipa, coming from lovely Seattle, I guess. Is it always raining in Seattle, though?
No. I mean, here we are in the middle of winter, and it's a gorgeous day out there. So,
oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. I asked we had another guest that was from Seattle, and I asked that question, like, is it always gloomy in Seattle? He seemed to go down the line that it's more than he wants it to be, but yes, we're getting a little bit of our spring taste here in South Carolina. So I think everyone's in a better mood when the sun's out and the weather's, nice. It seems to be.
Exactly. Yes.
Exactly. Phillipa, I know you've been through a lot in your journey and writing the book and everything. We like to keep this a little bit of banter back and forth, but we want, certainly to set the table for our audience. Let's just start with your journey to wellness here. I mean, it's, and ultimately the story of the book and things like that. I mean, maybe just set the table for everyone listening on a little bit of that journey. And then we can kind of kick around a few thoughts.
Absolutely. Well, I think even from childhood, I was aware of healthy eating. We were a little bit embarrassed actually growing up because my mom would give us food that wasn't necessarily as fancy looking as some of our friends had. And my mother actually realized at 2 years old when I stopped nursing and went on to dairy milk, she noticed I got 2 big patches of eczema on my cheeks and on the backs of my hands. And she figured out, the doctors didn't put 2 and 2 together, but she knew straight away that the dairy products were giving me eczema. And even today, you might come across doctors that haven't put 2 and 2 together in that regard. Then fast forward to when I was living in London, we had a close family friend over there, and I went to visit with her, and she was diagnosed with a fairly serious cancer. And she had changed everything in her whole house to organic, down to the last stick of butter. And I was really fascinated about that in her journey. So when I moved to the US, I started in Detroit, of all places, Detroit for 4 years. And
very healthy city.
Yeah. Way to move right in,
I mean, normally it's like Auckland, London, Paris, or
Detroit
something.
Motor City.
Motor City. Exactly. I know. And so I was there for 4 years, and then 10 years in Hawaii, and now I've been in Seattle for 14 years.
Wow.
And then my last, 30 years it took me to learn, to really understand the power of organics. And now I've been organic, let's say, in terms of my eating and food choices for 30 years. So now you know my age.
Yeah. We'll let you guess ours later.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's always tricky.
I like playing that game.
Yeah,
because I'm the older one.
Yeah, because you always
Chris just makes me look younger.
Yeah, I get bit as older, and Ryan gets bit as a younger guy.
I think just by the nature of me being older, I win that one.
I like games that I always win at too.
Yeah.
Yes. So obviously, when I hear organic eating, Phillipa, like my mind goes a little twisted. I'll just be honest, because like it gets so confusing for me when I go to the store as someone that has, what I consider to be a growing and popular wellness show, I am the everyman as it comes to like confusion on what to eat, when to eat, like on the organic side, because it's just, I wouldn't call it misinformation, just confusing. Like
there's a lot of labels that say organic, but it's not healthy, right?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I think eating whole foods is going to be, if you have to meet it halfway, at least start with eating real food around the edges of the supermarket, let's say. As soon as you start going into the interior, you're getting all the processed stuff and pre-prepared food and so on. So vegetables, if you're a meat eater, healthy meats, you can buy organic meat. And sometimes, you can get some at a supermarket, but you might want to get it from somewhere else as well, like local farmers, for example. I mean, here's how I look at it. If it's not grown organically, it's grown with pesticides, with some exceptions. So, for example, if you can buy some local produce, and it might say no spray, that just means that they haven't got maybe the money, the resources to go through the organic certification process. But essentially, anything that you're eating has been sprayed, or, in the case of bread, let's say, wheat has been sprayed with, Roundup resistant sprays and chemicals, and these are forever chemicals that stay in your body. And to get a good production of wheat, they spray right up until the last moment so that it sprouts and you get a better production. But feeding our kids and ourselves bread that's not organic, that's what you're eating. I'm not an expert in all of this. It just makes common sense that if it's not organic, it's been grown with some form of pesticide, insecticide, herbicide, something.
Do you think ultimately, I'm going to lead the witness and I kind of know the answer or assume the answer, but I've been known to do this. I might wish, my cousin's a lawyer. He always says, you should have been a lawyer. Like, you lead the witness better than anybody I know. But is all that stuff killing us ultimately? Like, is the increases in cancer itself, like, at least on a really high level, to blame for that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was a very leading question, but yes, I truly believe that's the case. Yes. Yeah. And I know everybody's like, oh my gosh, this person I know has got cancer. My mother, father, brother, sister, cousin. Oh my gosh. Oh, someone I know just died last week. It's everywhere now. And if you have a look at the statistics in terms of, and the correlation of when they started to do this mass spraying on our, the mechanization of the farms and the mass spraying, that's when, the cancer started. And, we met a bunch of people along the journey, including those who landed in Sanoviv in Mexico, where we ultimately ended up as well. I can talk about that more later, that were sitting there with their cancers, dealing with that, trying to do alternative treatments after having, sprayed Roundup for, one guy was a landscaper and had been spraying Roundup his 20, 30-year career. And he was there. And, there's a big lawsuit, a Class A action lawsuit with billions of dollars being paid out to individuals due to specific correlation between the sprays on the, in their lives and getting cancer. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is a very common one that you get from Roundup and so on. And that's what my husband had. He was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Mm. Did they trace that to anything specific for your husband?
Well, in the US, doctors don't ask questions about your life. They don't have the time. They don't have the curiosity. They're not interested, perhaps. They don't ask about your childhood, your upbringing, and so on. In Mexico, they did. We had a phenomenal experience down there for 2 months. The first appointment was 3 hours long. And by the way, if you have a naturopathic doctor appointment, this can happen there too, where your first appointment might be 1 to 3 hours long. And, that they were asking my late husband, Eric, tell us about your childhood. Tell us about your relationships, your marriages, your work environment. He was in the Navy for 10 years on the submarines as an engineer. And there's some correlation there with the old ways they used to build the submarines without protecting the naval staff. And then, he was in a very bad car accident, and actually he died 3 times in that car accident event. He the helicopter rescue out and on the operating table, but he ended up with 200 broken bones on his face and an incredibly intense dental work and reconstruction to bring him back to looking normal. And that can be a factor right there, the dental work. I mean, there's so many things. So was it, some correlation to being on a submarine for 10 years, on and off, obviously, some dental or that dental work and the surgeries that he had when he had the bad car accident? Was it the 5 to 15 cups of coffee he used to drink in his early Microsoft days when they'd be basically sleeping under their desks, working 24/7 to get their products out into the world? Was it the processed food? Was it the Roundup? He did spray Roundup, and actually in Mexico they asked him about that. They said, "So what were you doing about 8-9 years ago?" And we looked at each other and we were like, We put the math together and we figured out that was when he was spraying. This is just before I met him. He was spraying Roundup like crazy over a 2-week period on his newly purchased waterfront property, which was, I think, 300 feet of waterfront. And it was all 6 feet of weeds and so on. So he was spraying shorts, sunshine, no mask or protection, just spraying away. And sure enough, 8-9 years later, here he is with a stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma diagnosis. So, I think there's a lot of contributing factors to getting a chronic disease, and in his case, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. But certainly, there's some indications that these things could have been major contributing factors.
Yeah. Talking with Phillipa Leseberg, author of His Name is Eric. Phillipa, obviously, we're going to push people to the book, and in our 40-minute episode, we can't tell that entire story, but obviously a lot of strength and power in what you've learned and what you put into the book, and sort of this alternative path that you probably ultimately now not only profess, but probably believe heavily in. I mean, but talk about what parts of writing the book and that story that would make sense, for our audience in kind of connecting those dots and ultimately, what your belief is and in these alternative channels.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the underlying theme through the book, it's a love story. So for those that are out in the audience that like a good love story, it's a good one with a sad ending, of course. But in terms of some of the really good messages and other themes in the book, it's like when you're faced with, let me go back a little step. So first of all, there's prevention. So there's a lot of things that we can be doing just in our everyday life. Healthier cleaners in the house, healthier deodorant, healthy skincare and shampoo, and food that we eat, and exercise, and all these things are all preventative, right? And I know that you've had some really amazing people on your show talking about supplementation from the Life Extension crowd, yes, for example. Amazing stuff. And I was been learning a lot when listening to those episodes. Yeah. So that's really good stuff. Yeah. Yes. So there's a lot of stuff you can do to prevent. But once you find yourself sitting in an office across from someone with an oncology badge, white coat, and they're like, well, we're really sorry to say, but, you've got stage 4 something cancer, or stage 3 or 2 or whatever. That's a big thing to hear. And immediately, cancer is a scary word. A lot of people just automatically go into fear, and they suddenly put themselves on a lower level, put the doctor team up on a pedestal, and they believe, and they put all their trust, they put their life in the hands of the doctors wearing the white coats. And the truth is, they're human. And even more so in this country, they really have their hands tied. They are allowed to talk to you about chemo, let's say cancer specifically, chemo, radiation, and surgery. Now, of course, immunotherapy too. And that's it. I begged and asked my husband's oncologist for really to explore other options, because he had a choice, whether to do, he could have gone three ways. He could have gone just the traditional chemo, radiation, surgery. He could have gone chemo, radiation, and surgery and some of the other stuff that I was exploring and we knew about already. Or he could have just gone alternative. Now, he was in pretty bad shape when he was diagnosed. So I think just given his situation, he ended up with a big surgery that took out part of his spine. There's a cancerous tumor in his spine. So it removed T8, replaced it with a titanium cage. And so that was a big thing to start with. And then he was, as I say, very, very bad shape. So I think looking back, I certainly would have still supported those first 3 months of chemo and radiation and so on. But at that point, could we have gone down to Mexico then? Could we have gone down at the 6 month point when the doctors were scratching their heads like, well, that didn't work. Okay, now we're going to try another chemo combination or cocktail. And so they tried another one. That didn't work. So, it's, and I was trying to give him, because I'm into, just sitting here beside me, this is what I'm into. This is celery juice, which I have almost every day, and this one here is grapefruit and orange and cucumber. So nice. Not necessarily the I'm pretty hardcore, so my combinations aren't necessarily ones that everybody would like. But
I need a juicer here.
Yes, Omega is the one to get, I feel, because it's called a masticator juicer rather than the centrifugal, which heats up the juice. This one just does a cold pressing the juice, which is much healthier. So I tried to give him smoothies and juices and so on, and then he actually just had to say to me, "Look, I can't do it. If it doesn't taste good, I can't get it down." And so I tried to give him as healthy meals as possible at home, but in the hospital they were feeding him all sorts of overcooked vegetables and stewed up meats with, like rich sauces, chocolate chip cookies, which were his favorite, mint chocolate chip ice cream, which is also his favorite, milkshakes, thick shakes, you name it. This is what they were feeding him in hospital. So there's so many things wrong with this picture. And it was really
nutrition
hard
in hospitals and doctors. When you said that, we were talking earlier, like that just rings so true. It's like they don't even talk to me about nutrition.
Sense.
They don't even know. Yeah, they won't even go there.
Right. Exactly. And I was like, why aren't we talking about hyperbaric chambers? Why aren't we giving him high dose vitamin C drips, vitamin D, all these high dose IV drips that are available now that you can get sort of in places like some of the, I go to a place called Restore. It's like a chain across the country and you can get your IVs in your hyperbaric chamber. You can do infrared, all the saunas, the red light therapy, cryogenics. I do all of that. And it's more available now than it was when my husband was going through his journey, but they won't talk to you about any of those things. In fact, I have a very close girlfriend, and many girlfriends actually that have gone through the breast cancer journey. And this one in particular I'm thinking about because it was just recent, and she got stage 1A cancer. And so they did the lumpectomies, took out the lumps on both sides, and then they said, now we're going to radiate you. So they radiated her for 30 days, and I know this sounds personal, but she showed me just quickly what they looked like, and oh my God, I couldn't believe it. It was like she had been napalmed, and she's still having problems a year later. And then they wanted to put her on 5 years of those chemo pills, or the pills that they do for a 5-year follow-up. And I'm like, you had stage 1. First of all, lumpectomy, great. Did you really have to have 30 days of radiation? Because now you've had it. If it comes back in the future, you can't have it again. You can't have any more radiation. And then the chemo pill for 5 years. And I said, you're so burnt. why don't you come to my hyperbaric chamber clinic that I go to? And so she talked to her oncologist about it, and the oncologist said, don't go for 5 years. And you know why she said 5 years, right? Because at the 5-year period, they can say that they were able to get another patient, another statistic into a 5-year remission. And I think that's terrible. And she made my friend feel so bad about even thinking about going into hyperbaric that she refused to do it. And I'm like, that's what it's for. It's for healing wounds and, flooding our cells with oxygen so that we can be in a more, alkaline state, in a healthier state. So many things. I can
relate
wrong.
to a lot of that. My wife went through breast cancer.
Oh,
and
boy.
So just last year. So I have been down that road, and it's and she's, over. I mean, it's never over, but came on the other side of it. So I'm familiar with all that terminology and everything like that. And the absolute 100% lack of solutions or ideas outside of, those tried and true supposedly things. And, now on medication, to essentially keep her in menopause, to keep, to suppress all of her hormones. And so I can write a book on that.
Yes, you could, and people gobble up stories. When I was posting on Facebook as we were going through this journey, when we were doing the traditional treatments in the US, I was posted occasionally, but we were shocked, at people's responses and the fascination they had with, because sometimes when you have a cancer event in a family, it's so shocking, and what you go through is so horrible. It's horrific that you just go. Sometimes you go inwards, and you don't ask for help, and you just try to survive. You stick to your house, and you go to the treatments, and here and there, and you don't talk to people. You don't share it on social media, and you just go through it kind of alone. Whereas, my two girlfriends that had already been to Sanoviv, they had posted about their breast cancer journeys. And Sanoviv in Mexico, and so that gave me confidence to post. And then as soon as my now late husband saw the responses that people were typing, like, oh my gosh, this is so fascinating. Oh, you guys are inspiring me to take better care of my health, and then of course all the bless yous, God bless. Good healing energy, juju coming your way. So there was a lot of, prayer and energy healing sent our way, which, it all helps, right? So, it does. It's all about the inspiration.
Phillipa, talk to me about like the specific alternative treatments and what they are, and, through your own experience and maybe even what you've learned after the fact.
Yes. So what I can do is share what some of the treatments they gave my husband in Mexico. And I want to be clear that in this clinic in Mexico, and there's a few of them down there that are treating cancer patients, because they can do things that the AMA won't let them do up here, American Medical Association, FDA, you name it, all the big associations and the boards and so on up here. There's, I think I'm just going to come out and say it. You can always edit if you feel like you need to, but there's a lot of money involved in cancer treatments, and I think that's a part of why there's such a push to stick with within the traditional within the wheelhouse, and in Mexico they don't have that same oversight. And so, and I think it's really up to the individual too. If they want to go all natural or a mix of both, let them do it. And, the clinic that we went to in Sanoviv, which by the way means long, healthy life, because, okay, it's all very well having a long life, but you want to be healthy too, right? And I just heard you say that in one of your podcasts I was listening to this earlier this morning. It's down there. They did, so for sure they did hyperbaric, and they had a hard shell hyperbaric. So it was full on the big ones that they use for divers when they get the bends. And that's more impactful on the body's cells than the soft shell that I go into, once or twice a week as preventative. So the hyperbaric was a big thing. They have a lot of IV drips. They do high dose vitamin C. They do. She gave him turmeric or curcumin, which is very well known, well researched for thousands of years to be anti-inflammatory and cancer tumor reducing. But you don't hear doctors talking about that in this country. But he got full-on drips through the IV of turmeric and curcumin, these bright gold, like it's worth its weight in gold in a way. So chemo, you might, we would call that liquid poison, and the turmeric we were calling liquid gold. They did something called transfer factors. So many IVs, and they tailor the IVs to all the individuals that are there. They also did something called ozonating the blood. They would take the blood out, ozonate it, and pop it back in again. And, all these treatments are designed to reduce inflammation. And by the way, inflammation is a word you don't hear much in the US talk, doctors don't talk about it. If I had $1 for every time they say something like, oh, don't worry about it, it's just a little bit of inflammation, and then they don't talk about it after that, I think I would have a lot of money, right? So but inflammation is something. Inflammation is the start of something. It should be really important. And that's why, Tony Robbins with his book Life Force and all these early diagnostic tools that he was, introducing in the book, these are all really critical things, because you want to get it. I mean, if you're going to have to get cancer, if it happens to you and it's in your cards, stage 0 or 1 is the time to get it, right? Because then you have a lot more choices. You don't have to go the full route of the traditional at that point. Anyway, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second there, but back to what they were doing in Sanoviv. They also have infrared saunas. They were doing massage, like a very special sort of energy healing massage. They have energy healers down there they were doing something called body code. And that was looking at the emotional and spiritual connection to where you had disease in your body. And this one lady was incredibly intuitive. She would say something like, so you have, you've taken on board something that from your mother. She felt hopeless and helpless when she was younger, and a couple of incidents that happened to her when she was young. And you've just taken that on board, and you've put that into your liver. And then I'm looking at Eric because he has cancer in his liver, right? So, it's amazing what the energy healing can do. And there's different forms of energy healing. Even, sometimes you can get energy healing with horses and dogs. And if you can get into the ocean, which is what I did for 10 years, I swam with wild dolphins for 10 years in Hawaii. I had a business doing that. You get in the water with the dolphins. This is all different forms of energy healing. There's meditation and mindfulness. And they did all that down there too. And interestingly, the doctors were the ones giving the meditation classes or doing the yoga, teaching the yoga. It was all really incredibly personal. So these, they might do surgery one day on you, and then, they're teaching the yoga class or running you through a sound therapy meditation with the sound bowls and all these like really cool instruments. One of them sounded a mix between a didgeridoo and the sort of seashells with the water running over the seashells on the beach. So they had sound therapy. They had laughter therapy. We would do laughing meditations, and you start off faking it, but honestly, when you start faking laughter, before long it turns into actual laughter. So it was really a fun thing, and it was fun for Eric to do that. They have these pools there, these swimming pools, and there's 5 different temperatures of the pools. It's called the Talasso, and there's no chlorine or anything there. And so, you go from one to the other, and there's different temperatures do different things on the body in terms of your healing. But between each one, you would go walk through this one smaller pond that had these like smooth river stones that worked on massaging all the organs in your body through your feet. I mean, it was just unbelievable, all the things they had down there. And the food. Everything was organic, dairy-free, gluten-free. And if you ate meat, they had organic meats there as well. They had delicious food, just rainbows of salads, beautiful soups that they made, just amazing. And then between meals, you could go and get juices, celery juice, I loved seeing the look on Eric's face when he had wheatgrass shots for the first time. It's not a pretty taste, if you're not used to it. I'm pretty hardcore now. I can throw that stuff back, but it was very funny seeing him do wheatgrass. I never thought in a million years that he would be eating this type of food and drinking the smoothies and the juices that they were giving him. He was loving it. And he looked like he was turning around down there too. When he went down after 9 months of chemo, radiation, and surgery, he was quite grey. Looked like he was pretty much death warmed up. And they said, "You've got 6 weeks left to live. Sorry, nothing further we can do for you here. Nothing more we can do." So that's when we were like, "Screw that." So we hightailed it down to Mexico. He was looking pretty bad when he arrived, but after being there 2 months, he was looking pretty good. But ultimately it was too late by the time we went down there, so that it didn't end well for him.
Yeah. Ask you a question. Like, I'm gonna let Chris jump in here, but I want one thought. Like, I feel like I've heard like the opposing views of like modern versus alternative. I feel like depending on who you talk to, you've heard, they chose the alternative route and it didn't work. And unfortunately, they didn't choose that modern path and it ended poorly. Then you hear the other side, which is we did everything modern and it didn't work. And if we had done the alternative, so you hear both sides of it. I've heard it, I think, and I don't claim to know everything about Steve Jobs, but supposedly Steve Jobs fought the modern routes until it was too late. He went the alternative routes with pancreatic cancer. And then the doc's like, you waited too long. You should have done this, that, and the other. I'm paraphrasing.
Yes.
I think it's difficult, and every person's journey is different. But now that you've gone through it, I mean, where do you lie in that? Like, is it just that you need to find the balance of the two? I mean, where do you fall on those kind of opposing views of what could have, should have been done?
That, by the way, is the multi-billion-dollar question, because honestly, that's it right there. What do you do? What would I do? What would you guys do if you found yourself sitting in the room across from the white coat? Yeah. I think the problem that we all face is that because we're depending on the white coat to give us all the answers and trust them with our lives, we are sometimes not looking at the alternatives. Now, I feel very fortunate that I know about all the alternatives, and I'm practicing some of those just on a prevention basis, but not everybody does. That's one of the reasons I wrote this book. It's like, guys, you have to make a decision. And ultimately, Eric decided to go the traditional route for the 9 months. He apologized so many times. Once the 9 months, and they said, "Sorry, you're going to die. You've got 6 weeks left to live. That's it." He apologized to me so many times. And I'm like, please don't apologize. It's okay. We are where we are. Now we have to do whatever we can. But magic wand. Okay. If I had a magic wand and I could just like wave it across the whole country, right? We would have clinics like Sanoviv on every corner. So rather than little pubs like they have in London, or dairies like they have in New Zealand, we would have these clinics on every corner where you could go for prevention, you can go for treatment, and nobody's getting shut down. That, the authorities aren't coming in, and this still happens. And I'm going to say, I know some personal instances where naturopathic doctors that have been having some success with cancer get shut down. They lose their license. Their clinic is shut down. There was a case where they came in with guns, blazing, and took all the files and computers. It's like, what the heck? What century are we in? Now, I know that, without getting into the politics, there's certainly been a change in administration recently. So regardless of which side of the fence you're on, there might be some changes that we can see soon around this in terms of, are we going to keep closing clinics down that are saving people naturally? My magic wand wish is they stay in place. allow people to offer the Rife machine, allow people to offer the biofeedback machines, allow it all, and have individuals be able to make that choice. Have lots of TV shows and documentaries on this so people can learn more. Okay, my book is just one, and it's a start for some people. I know that some people have told me it's already inspired them to change their lives and their health habits and so on, which is fantastic. But let's really make it a huge effort to get this information out there, that there are alternatives. So I'm not saying don't do chemo, radiation, surgery. I'm saying for the 2 million people that are going to get diagnosed with cancer this year, this is not people that have got it coming back again and that have been in remission, it's come back. This is not people that have, that are still dealing with it with an active cancer treatment. This is new diagnoses, fresh diagnoses this year. 2025, there's going to be another 2 million people. What if we all said, enough? We're not going to just take the traditional treatments anymore. What else have you got for us? What if 2 million people said no? Imagine that. They said, no, we want to be offered everything. We want to be able to make our own choice, because cancer should be an individual treatment per person. But in this country, I can tell you it's not. They gave him the standard treatment for stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Boom, he got that cocktail. Looked like it was working after 3 months. They kept repeating. Why do you know every 3 months if it's working? That's when the insurance companies pay for the PET scans. But there's other ways without PET scans there's other technology out there that's available to check on this. Even dogs can smell cancer in the body. I know one case where, I know might be a little bit off center, but this one guy, his dog, normally a great dog, bit him on the hand, and he went and got the bite that handled at the hospital, and for some reason they gave him a blood test. They discovered he had stage 1 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Now, you don't usually find the lymphomas early because they're blood cancers, and it takes a while, goes around the body, starts doing its thing. And by the time we find out you've got symptoms, lumps and bumps and tumors and things, you might be stage 3 or 4. But because he found out at stage 1, he was able to do his natural healing, and he was fine. But the dog smelled it in his body and bit him. So he was, in a way, the dog saved his life, because otherwise he might have been stage 3 or 4, which is what typically happens. So magic wand, we should have access to it all. And please, authorities, if you're watching this, don't shut down the clinics that are having success. Why? Why are you doing that? I don't understand. I know that profit is a factor, but our loved people, our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, cousins, colleagues, friends, we should be giving them everything that we can in our arsenal. It's not just one way. There's other ways as well. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that there are other things that work. There are treatments out there that work. In fact, let me say this. This is my understanding, that Sanoviv has 24 years of research. They've been trying to give it to the US, and they're not interested. They don't want it. They don't want to know. Sometimes you hear oncologists, let's say someone's doing something on the side. They're doing ozone treatment or hyperbaric, or, they're doing their own IVs. Because sometimes you can't even talk to your oncologist about it. They will put the fear of God into you and tell you, well, that's going to affect the efficacy of whatever we're trying to do, which is unfair, because they really don't know. They don't know. Now I lost my train of thought, darn.
Well, the reality is it's being empowered, and we say this a lot with this show, with knowledge and being the CEO of your own health.
Yes.
And we empower the doctors, we empower other people. We need their help, we need their guidance, but it's up to us to be, the knowledge is out there. And it's also a shame that we're sort of driving a car that could have a lot more features. Okay, I'm driving, the Honda, but I didn't put the leather in. I could have, there's alternative things that can be additive and not necessarily one or the other.
Right.
And that's what's a shame. And if I had to guess, it's a liability thing. The hospital, if they say they're going to do this treatment and you're doing other things over here on the side that maybe or maybe not countered what they did, they're liable on some level. And I don't know if and that doesn't make it okay either. Then sign the waiver and say, hey, I'm going to go at this every way that I know how. It seems like there'd be ways around that, but that's my only assumption. But Chris, questions, thoughts for Phillipa?
Yeah, because obviously we always want to give people some actionable advice. Phillipa, what throughout all these experiences, right? Especially, I'm intrigued by Mexico, especially because that's becoming more talked about. You know, Mel Gibson was talking about, I think, with Joe Rogan a couple of weeks ago. He brought his dad down there. What are some of, top 3 or 5 tools, modalities, practices that you've taken either from there or throughout this experience? You mentioned you're big in preventative, ozone, stuff like that. What are some of these things that people can do that you do every day that is preventative?
I'll hold up my juices. This is one thing that you can be doing, juicing and smoothies, because it's a way to, juicing takes the fiber out, smoothies keeps it in, but it's just a way to get a lot of nutrition into the body all at once. So I would say, in terms of your diet, maybe add in some juicing, get yourself a juicer, get yourself a Vitamix, and start adding in some of those things. I would say also related to diet, go organic. Now, if places like LA have even a lot of organic restaurants. When I was down there recently, I couldn't believe the amount of organic restaurants that were available. Here in Seattle, they're a bit lazy. They haven't done a lot of that. There's only a few of them. But if you can eat organic at home at the very least, that's huge. Less microwaving, more heating up stuff on the stove, less fast food. I can't tell you. I mean, the numbers that the amount of the tonnage of fast food that's consumed every day in this country is just shocking. I mean, it's incredible. And I think people think that they're getting nutrition from this food, and they're not. Absolutely not.
Calories maybe, but not nutrition.
Yes, calories. That's exactly right. So, it's less fast food, more home-cooked meals. If you're not doing a regular exercise program, at the very least, start walking. Get off the couch. Instead of watching, 3 or 4 hours of TV every night, go walking for one of those hours. And if you can't do an hour, start with 5 minutes, then go to 20, then go to half an hour. And before you know it, you'll be doing your hour. And do some weights. You can do little weights at home even. You don't have to be a member of the gym. But if you are a member of the gym, you know what to do there. I have a personal trainer that I've been using. At first, I wanted to go twice a week to learn some of the good techniques. But now he's my accountability partner. Now I still see him a year later, twice a week doing weights, because there's so much research that points to the fact that we need that. So diet, exercise, and weights are sort of related to that. Less fast food. And then, if it takes a bit of some resources to join some of these clinics, but if you can do it, hyperbaric, IVs, especially when you feel yourself coming down with something. You can do hot and cold showers. Sanoviv, they taught us to do, hot showers, and then you turn it all the way down and you're in the cold shower. That's a bit easier than getting into an ice bath. There's a lot of talk about, icing these days.
Oh yeah. Krista and I did it last week for
the
show. I don't know that I've thawed back out yet, but
the shower one's huge. I actually learned that in drug treatment and rehab to do the cold. And I've done it literally since then, like 15 years. I'd always put it on cold every time I end in shower.
Yes.
And it changes your frequency, just to put it simply,
Yeah. I mean, when I go from the hottest of hot to all the way cold, I mean, I do a shout. I'm like, whoa, but it just feels so good. You just feel the energy, come back. Yeah, so there's dry brushing. Dry brush your skin.
Mm-hmm.
Your skin is a big detoxer, and you just have to go, along your body like this with a dry brush. There's brushes that are designed for that, and do your whole body, and that's before the shower. So these are all really basic things. Some cost some money and some don't. So for those that don't have a lot of extra right now, then you can still do the exercise. You can still choose the food that you eat, less microwave, more heating up on the stove or cooking inside the oven. These are things that don't cost extra money that you can do.
Love it. Actionable,
easy, actionable.
Reasonable, practical. Yeah. Phillipa, where can everyone learn more about the book and everything you're doing?
So my website is phillipaleseberg.com, and so you can order the book through the website or go on Amazon and just look up His Name is Eric, and you can get it. Currently, it's available on paperback or Kindle version, e-version. I will be doing an audio version. Just haven't done that yet. I keep getting asked about that for those that struggle with reading and they prefer to listen. But phillipaleseberg.com is a good place to start. And you can sign up on the newsletters there too to get updates. And I've just started blogging as well with some of the stuff that we've been talking about today.
Phillipa, powerful journey, and really appreciate your time and, for spreading the word of alternative treatments and how they can be used and considered in really painful points in people's lives.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been a great experience being on the show, and I really fully support everything that you guys are doing. So thank you for doing what you do.
Thanks, Phillipa.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. It was amazing.
Hey guys, you know where to find us, vibescience.com. We're spreading the good word. We're here to empower you, taking you to your highest vibe. We'll see you next time.
The content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis.
Thanks for listening. This is Vibe Science. To learn more or watch full episodes, visit vibesciencepodcast.com. Here's to discovering your highest vibe